Oh my goodness. Welcome to the Ask Us Anything podcast, blogcast, videocast. And when we say anything, we mean anything. All right. Ask us anything about copiers, technology, buggy whips, typewriters, PCs, UFOs. Doesn't matter. I've got Art and I've got Kevin here today. So we are going to dive into probably the same thing we have in the last few weeks, but looking forward to some great discourse and discussion. I'm going to start it off with a question to ooh, itty, meeny, miny, mo. Kevin,
Yes, Greg.
we're almost of the same generation.
I think you're a lot younger,
I
but
don't know
but I'll
about
go with
that.
you.
All
I'll
right,
go
let's
with the
go with
flow
that.
here.
There you go.
What show from the 1970s do you miss the most?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
ooh.
1970s. So there's some taboo ones that I really like Sanford and Son and
I
All in the Family. That probably wouldn't be really appropriate these days, but I love those kind of old-fashioned shows that kind of push the limits. I like Emergency was one of the shows. Starsky and Hutch. Uh, those kind of
you're killing me because
corny.
that's exactly right. It's like, oh wow, I just
Oh,
threw that one out there.
I didn't realize there was a right answer, but those were all the
There is.
classics of the 70s. Yeah. Dukes of
Well, yeah,
Hazzard. Yeah.
Starsky and Hutch,
Yeah.
Dukes,
Yeah.
Magnum, Rockford,
Yeah.
Simon and Simon,
Yeah.
Three's Company. How about that one?
Oh, love
Three's
that. Yeah.
Company
Yeah.
was controversial.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you had the mod side, all those were controversial. And then later, do you remember a show called Fernwood Tonight by any chance?
I don't
No.
know that one.
Or
No.
Soap? Do you remember Soap?
So I remember that one. That was funny. Night
It,
Court was funny. I think
oh,
that might have
Night
been
Court.
80s. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, so yeah, it's a good answer. Art, do you have anything to contribute to that particular question? It's a scathing question.
My memory really lapses from the 70s, my friend. I was doing strange things at strange times with strange people.
People are
Um
strange.
70s, yeah, 70s is I was in high school, going to concerts. Um
Oh, some great concerts though.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
Led
that was
Zeppelin,
the
Led
uh,
Zeppelin, right? Rolling Stones, Foghat.
yeah, that kind of stuff. I mean, towards the end, you ended up getting the Bostons, the Journeys, the I don't know how you because remember you went through the hard not the hard rock, but you went through the good rock from the Doors to the Beatles, which I don't like, but you know you get the feeling right from the '60s to the '70s. You Aerosmiths, you had that real guitar, and even the folksy music with the Carpenters, Fleetwood Mac. It
Marshall
was
Tucker Band.
Marshall Tucker. Yeah, the Southern rock started to come
Yeah,
out. Because I grew up outside Detroit, so we were I didn't realize. I thought everyone in the world was a rock and roll capital. So we were like the proclaimed rock and roll capital of the world. But the 70s was so cool. And then do you guys remember disco? Because
oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, of
oh yeah.
course. Saturday Night
disco,
Fever. Yeah.
yeah, it's like disco hit. And Detroit was like, no way. We were blowing up albums in Tiger Stadium. Then Chicago had a big riot over disco socks, the whole thing.
Correct.
And then
Yeah.
as disco faded away, that's when you started to get the Sticks made a jump from Sticks to Mr. Roboto, right? Everyone was trying to get into that dance beat. So bands started to and you started to see it, the Bostons, the Kansas. You started to be able to, Romantics, the Rockets, all these guys, you were able to dance to rock and roll.
Right.
Because during the Foghat, Led Zeppelin, those were just jams, right? Those
Yeah.
you couldn't get on the floor and dance per se, but it changed. So disco kind of spun the ball a different way and then gave us all this other stuff. Like, we had the Knack, we had, all sorts of little bands that are,
Hey, how about
mished them all together.
how about the great video with Aha?
Well, now you're talking
Yeah.
the videos. Okay, a
Right,
whole
right,
nother evolution, right? Because
Yeah.
right.
MTV.
Videos.
Yep, and Aha was a great one, and people would wait. Michael Jackson's got his new video coming out at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Log in or not log
Oh
in. Oh
yeah.
my god, tune
Yeah.
in. um, but those were big, huge shifts. Now those were societal shifts because on here I'm going to draw it in. I'm going to bring it back. Um, So if you went through those times, and 80s did the same thing, there was a whole nother transition from society of whatever. The 90s were bringing in the internet, the interwebs and all that, and the PCs. The 2000s were another transition. And now we're looking at a fourth or whatever, fifth wave, whatever you call it, a whole nother transition that typically it started in 2020 without us knowing it because of COVID, right? The fear of COVID shifted everything. No, but there was no, I mean, depending on who you ask, there was no plan to, introduce something that made everyone go home and change the way they work. There was no, that was all stuff that spun out at because of this. And then here we are trying to take hold of that and apply our technology and everything we know to the change. And in comes another one, artificial intelligence. That's going to blow everything up again. So my question now is like, okay, where do you guys see this particular transition taking place when it comes to copiers and office technology? And I'll start with you, Kev. Go ahead.
Yeah, so glad to be part of this again. We did one at the end of December, and it was just getting to know you guys. So, Art, I know you're a cigar smoker, and maybe it sounds like other kinds of smoker too. Your past
In the
life.
70s.
In the 70s.
And Greg, it seems like you're a bourbon aficionado. So that's
Spice of life.
those are two good things. It seems like the only thing missing is a golf expert on this. So I don't know if we've got anybody. It seems like those three things go together. So that's was, but yeah, but I think to your point, like there's always these evolutions, right? But they're not just like overnight. They take time. It has to progress, And I always like to very one of my mentors in my professional life. He told me like, Kevin, there's always leader companies, and then they kind of lose their direction, and then there's other ones that come up. So there was like Microsoft way back in the 80s, with coming out with Windows and the graphical user interface, and that took time for adoption, but they won the operating system wars for many, many years, right? And then Apple came along with mobile, and then they were like the leader, right? And they were always, Steve Jobs was introducing Mac Pros and iPhones and iPads and all that. And then they were one of the most valued companies. Then Google came along with search, but these are like 10, 15-year transitions, right? Between these technology megatrends. So with COVID, like you said, in 2020, or 2020, 2020, not 2000, but this was forced upon us. It wasn't like, it was kind of a thing that I'd been talking about, distributed capture and work from home and work remote for a long, long time. But it forced the industry to go there so quickly that they were all caught off guard. They weren't ready. They didn't have those secure kind of digital transformation solutions from home. They had to get they went and bought all-in-one printers from Best Buy and Fry's, and they were getting these consumer kind of devices, but they were totally out of compliant from the IT perspective. But you had to do what you had to do, right? You still had to get work done. So I think, and we talked about this last time. I think now that it's been 3 years or 4 years, right? Businesses are finally waking up. I feel I kind of use the terminology that people are getting over their COVID hangover, and that business is going to continue. And businesses have finally realized that this is the future, right? We have to appeal to the new kind of worker that's insisting. A lot of them are saying, "Hey, I can work hybrid, or I'm going to work remote exclusively," right? The worker is so much more empowered. You got to give them the tools. So I think this is a mega trend. For number one, that's kind of simple and obvious. But how we use AI is also going to be really important. I was just on a call yesterday. It was a technology company that basically does kind of predictive analytics on the employee's behavior. Like they could use AI and data sets to determine, hey, Greg's all of a sudden not using his email as often, or there's something in, your conversations where you could do semantic analysis and maybe say, hey, Greg's not happy anymore, right? As a worker, right? The tone of his emails are not good. Or, I don't know if they were using AI, but they use a lot of data is my point, right? And then they could kind of predict, hey, this employee needs this kind of training, or this employee's going to leave. And then they were saying that like it takes 2 years to retrain employees and get them up to speed, and all that knowledge is left when they leave. So it's very important to keep employees happy. So it's pretty interesting of using the dynamic of work from home and work remote and trust people, but still have the analytics so that you can make them better and keep your business running. So
Yeah.
I would say those are two mega trends, and I'd be interested to see what Art sees as, you know, kind of the next new. Is it going to be the hair bear bands, or is it going to be the heavy metal bands, or back to our
Ooh.
music analogy, right? What's new? Disco again?
Wow, I didn't think about that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna think about it. Go ahead, Art.
I don't know how much I have to offer. Um, I'm a hardware type person, and I've been always struggle with you know, what type of how how AI can interact with hardware, right? I'm just not sure how much more can be offered to, you know, a walk-up print device, or a walk-up copy device, or a walk-up um, scan device. We've already had the integration of Alexa a couple, 3, 4 years ago, which actually went absolutely nowhere because no one wanted to be caught next to their copier talking to it. That's just like sitting next to the water cooler and talking to the water cooler.
Although a lot of people did talk to the copier.
You know, somebody's gonna think you're absolutely nuts. You know, I've said this for quite a few years. No one copies anymore. Very rarely. I mean, they'll scan, they'll walk to the copier and they'll scan. They'll, of course, print to it, but that interaction in the copy process is dead, as far as I'm concerned. You can have as much features on your machine as possible. And since everything is also available from your print driver, you know, I don't, so years ago, I used to get phone calls. How do I do a booklet maker on my machine? How do I do a magazine mode? How do I staple, if I have, you know, which different, features can I use for stapling? Because our machines can staple in 6 different positions, or hole punch in 2 different positions.
That's right.
How can I move the image over a little bit because I want a 3-hole punch it, right? And these are for all in the copy process. I don't field those questions anymore
Wow.
at all.
Art, do you field any questions about output and stuff? You know, this is fascinating. You're absolutely right, but okay. The
Output
marginal
questions?
line stuff. Yeah, like, okay, I'm gonna print, but I need to know
Yeah.
how to move it over because I want it in 3-hole punch. But do you even get that?
We'll get that. I'll get some of those questions in the print process, the driver process. Where
Right.
I'll have to, I just yesterday, I was at a client's office and I had to help them with setting up the printer to print on the statement size paper, because they're printing out a ton of labels for boxes, but they're putting them on plain paper and then just taping them to the envelope,
Oh,
right? So I had to help the client do that in the print process and set the parameters up in the machine so it recognizes that certain piece of paper. So that's the type of calls that we'll get, but they're basically in that print process, and they'll be maybe in that scan process where somebody says, hey, my scans aren't coming out that clear, right? There's bands on my scan, which could be the, you know, basically the optics. But we're storing if we're going to store documents, what DPI should we use?
wow.
Questions similar to that. So I struggle with how AI can integrate into the hardware unless I mean, unless it integrates with the Alexa.
Right, or a voice integration of some
yeah,
sort.
voice
Yeah.
integration.
Yeah.
This might answer your question.
Ah.
The human voice is assisted
Yeah.
made by
Yeah,
the
see,
human
too good.
being using the vocal
Perfect.
tract, including heartbeat,
Could have staged that better, Art.
Gonna get mine going off to here too.
I know. I got the headphones on. Mine
Yeah.
won't react. I'm good.
So I struggle with AI integration that the client can benefit from hardware. I just don't see anything right now.
Yeah.
I do believe on the dealer side, on that
Mm.
data point side, I believe AI can work wonders. Like a talk we had about, I think it was about 3 weeks ago with Larry, right?
Mhm.
On how that can, instead of somebody looking at a set of numbers for each device on our profitability of that device, you can tell AI to go in and look at this set of machines and run me a profitability.
You know, on that, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe on that. And there might be some software that does that now, but I'm not really in that back end. I'm not in that back end. I'm more in that front end user clients, working with end user clients. And then I have to deal myself. Good
Yeah,
question, but
But
hardware.
Art, I think you're onto something. Maybe, what you said, I take to heart, because kind of what you said is, if what you're talking about is the like user experiences, right? I want to use hole punch. I want to use stapling. And somebody had to come to you and rely on your expertise because you knew that this machine and this driver interface and this software application go here, click, and you do 15 clicks to do some action, right? So it's way too hard, and I'll be critical of most of the manufacturers in our business, the copy machines, scanner companies, and the software that goes with it. It's still way too hard and way too inconsistent to scan a document. It just do something simple. And for 30 years, you think we would have evolved as an industry to make it easy, where I just automatically scan a document, it's rotated the right side up, it's cropped, it's, it takes all the nasty background color off of it. It's it's
Despeckles and
automatic,
does all that stuff,
speckle,
right?
deskew, but
Yep.
we're still not there, right? There's
Correct.
serious inconsistencies. So that's number one. Like so the technology is evolving, and I agree. The copy machine manufacturers are getting much better than the dedicated scanner manufacturers, because usually, we'll use a dedicated scanner for OCR because you wanted a good optical character recognition. But where we can be evolve, I think you hit it, is Alexas or LLMs. But, and I'll give you one example, because I was anticipating you might go there, or Greg might go there. And these in our business, you have to understand certain vocabularies and the contextual meaning of certain words. So if I go up to my copy machine or my scanner and I say, "Hey, bear with me a minute, and I want to scan this, and I want to get fired, so I'm gonna scan this resolution and use this DPI." So it needs to understand DPI means dots per inch. It
Yep.
needs to understand bear with me means bear, because English language is very, very not clear, right? We have bear and bear. We have the bear in the forest, and we have bear. We have fire. I use fire, right? I use resolution, can be two different things. So in that sentence, in that one sentence, there's like 4 different words that can have different meanings, right? It's ambiguous. The English language is ambiguous. So the LLM needs to understand these simple phrases and simple ontology that's unique to
Right.
what the user would want to do. But we can make the be through voice and through LLMs and AI, we can make the user experience better because it's just with natural language, right? It doesn't have an interface. Maybe there's a little interface that has some feedback and says, "Oh, Greg got my scan," or something like that, or "I didn't understand you," and have a little conversation about what the user wants done. Like, "Oh, you didn't tell me, where do you want it stored?" Right? Maybe in my little phrase of what I want the machine to do, I didn't describe it. So it needs to know those things. So I do think the promise of AI and conversational AI, if you combine this all together and make a really nice user experience, that's really there. It is.
So, which leads me to, all of our new copiers can access the web. It's up to the IT person if they will allow walk-up users to access the web. I'm wondering if there's interesting. I'm wondering if there's of course, a user could access ChatGPT right from the MFP of a browser. But maybe, should there be a ChatGPT button on the user interface? that would automatically bring up ChatGPT because I just brought up something. I was just playing around with it. And I asked, I've got a Ricoh IMC 6010. How can I staple?
Huh.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it brought up as my last knowledge is January 2022. I don't have the specific details about the button configurations because I asked it, what buttons do I need to press?
So
Right?
see, that would
Because
have to be trained. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to read 2 paragraphs on, and it doesn't tell me the buttons. So I said, please
No.
tell me the buttons I need to press. It just came up with check printer display, look at touch display or control panel on the printer, navigate through the menu options, touch screen or buttons, access printer out. So it really didn't give me what I needed. But again, we're just
Art, I had
reaching.
a conversation yesterday with someone in our industry that has built a chat. Well, here's the premise here's the chat bot for service companies, copier service guys. In theory, this thing will aim at the dealership's data, right? So you'll be asking, the text will ask questions about devices that the dealership has serviced. So that narrows it down, right? As opposed to all copiers out there. The LLM and the AI, quote unquote, is aimed right at, I only carry Konica and Pico Serias. So my support questions are going to be around those initially, right? And they said they already had it developed to where it's aimed at their specific database so they could pull out, instead of downloading the PDF for a manual that would answer the questions you just asked, Art,
Right.
the AI, the chatbot would have access to that particular model's user manual. And instead of spitting out, because that's what LLMs do, right? They don't, it's not like a search engine where it just gives you the PDF. It's an LLM that'll interpret it and then regurgitate it in an understandable way for a human. And that regurgitation gets better the more it's used. All right. So now that's the good news. Unfortunately, that to me is when I looked at the actual functionality, it's no more than a chat bot with a spreadsheet, right? The idea is great, but it didn't deliver on what it should have been able to deliver.
Got it.
I don't believe I believe it's doable. It's easily doable. You could build not even an API, just a GPT. You could do this particular entity, and I'm not going to bring up their name, was very self-centered on service desk and I got to say it, old school analytics, nothing more than smart spreadsheets. And that was where he was holding himself back, and he didn't have the vision to see, because all he is, well, can you apply this to any industry with a help desk? And the answer
Right.
should be yes. The answer should be, yeah, we can do that. But it came out maybe, and what alarmed me was he had to think about it. It's like, oh, so you've never thought about that? All right.
Right.
So, but your idea is perfect. And along those lines is like, yeah, okay. You walk up, you say, how the hell do I put a 3-hole punch in this thing? And the LLM will hear it and know, the searching and all that stuff is very limited to that particular device.
Dear Brenda, welcome to the copier. We can assist you.
Well, I hate to pour water all over this, but AI will eliminate the need to copy or print. So
Copy? Yes, copy is dead. Print? Print's still gonna be around
I know.
probably before after I'm in the ground.
Yeah.
But, speaking about that, and what you were speaking about the tech, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be fantastic if a text could actually just use that chat interface, and even with a verbal interface, and put in the ID number of the machine and ask it, when was the last time we replaced
Oh,
the
God.
drum?
Yeah.
When was the last time we replaced the developers? When was the last time we did a full PM? Rather than, I hear this from clients from time to time. Why was I paying for your technician to be on a website,
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
right?
Well, yes, absolutely. And I had a notion, but then again, so if we see OEMs start to do this, you can feel what's happening, right? That they're going to cut out that particular cost center by allowing the end users the ability to fix their own stuff. Now, that's been a nightmare since, that's been an issue since day one. Until the OEMs start to design machines that are set up to be serviced that way. Then they circumvent the whole service arm of the industry, because
And
the new machine I just built is designed to be self-serviced by an end user.
yeah, not sure if that will happen or when it will happen.
Konica Minolta
It's-
just released a major production device that the service is included. It's expensive, but it does just that.
So, so Rico has machines that are similar that work on what they call TCRU kits. And the
Okay,
TCRU kits are where the end users are trained to replace the most important consumable parts. And they keep these consumable parts on hand, whether it's a drum, it's a fuser, it's a transfer belt. Those are the parts that regularly wear on those devices.
right.
They can actually, if you get an indicator on the machine that says replace TCRUB, they can reach in, replace TCRUB without a technician being on site, right?
Yeah.
However, there's still a whole shitload of stuff that goes wrong with these machines that are not even close to replacing a TCRU to solve the, well, you could replace a TCRU to solve the problem. However, then, if you're replacing those TCRUs to solve the problem, to solve the issue, well, when you're on a cost per copy plan, who's going to bear the brunt of that, replacing that TCRU at 50% or at 25%? So, yes, Konica Minolta is like Rico with those automated, parts replacement where a user can go in and replace it, but it's not the, it's still not going to solve the issue of not having to have a technician on hand. It can
So I
be, go ahead.
So I agree with you, Art, is that like proactive maintenance for the corporate customer, right? That's very valuable, right? And maybe you offer this as a subscription service because they're not going to be paying you on a break fix for that technician to go to some website and just look at pure analytics and say, oh, your toner needs to be replaced, your fuser needs to be replaced. But the corporate can understand that themselves, and then the copy machine tells them to go replace that. So that's one thing. And that's really valuable. But what we think is the bigger, broader picture of your overall solution. So you're scanning, mostly scanning, but printing data, right? But how about the content of the documents themselves, right? Oh, I scanned, maybe it's an accounts payable. I got, 40% of invoices and 30% of remittance documents. And I found that the OCR quality on these remittance documents was like degrading over time. What's the reason? Maybe the lamps are bad, or maybe it needs to be cleaned, or user training needs to be better so that I can get higher OCR quality. Maybe I was getting double jams more often in this region instead of maybe a very humid kind of environment. I'm getting double jams. And the pages were sticking together more often, and the ultra feed double-sided
Right.
detections were coming off.
Right.
So can I derive some kind of insight that's more than just pure statistical? Because those kind of things, certain things are just pure statistics. At your roller count here at 2,000 sheets, you should replace your rollers, right? But those kind of things that you can't really know about, like, again, the machine's jamming more often. Is it a user training problem? Is it a physical problem with the parts? Is it replacement parts? Is it environmental? So if you know those things, you could be proactively keep your business process flowing much more efficiently, because you could detect things and it derives kind of surfaces insights a little bit better by taking a big picture of the whole overall environment. So that's where I see LLMs, with AI and reporting. I see all these coming together. But another thing that I love talking about all this stuff, so I just get on a roll here.
Cool.
But a lot of the machines manufacturers, and you're talking about the OEMs, right? Eventually, they have a lot of resources, a lot of money. They're very smart kind of companies. They'll figure it out. But most of them are just giving away this kind of very valuable analytics. And why? Because the machines are usually on a corporate network behind a firewall. You know, they're not getting all the analytics from all the machines together. I mean, I mean, in the scanner business, I certainly don't see this. And it's because, you know, we haven't had centralized workflows, basically. You know, you couldn't connect all your copy machines and scanners and other kind of image acquisition devices together so that you can get all the
that's true.
data in one
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
right? When it's
Yeah.
fragmented, then you can't really have a good data set. It's only unique to this kind of thing. So with cloud services, and I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about managed print services and managed services overall. I think a very savvy dealers or OEMs eventually are going to understand I want to offer cloud services that are connecting my hardware because of this analytics. Don't just give it away. It's so important to know how many sheets are scanned and what types of documents are scanned and the quality, again, like the OCR quality of the scans, right? Was it good? Was it bad? Is it getting better, getting worse? Right? So it's all that kind of stuff that they can take back and then they can even monetize it and offer reporting services back to their clients and say, you want to know your data, right? It's your data, right? We're just taking discrete stuff and then just making it available where you can go to a kind of a reporting dashboard and you can slice and dice the data however you want. But here's all the data available. Run your reports to your heart's content and set up automatic reporting now, you know. So maybe some sales manager wants to go and say, just ask a question to the interface. You know, I just thought, I used to work at a company that had several companies that had Salesforce. And to do a report, the business manager, who was usually paid very well, they had to go to IT department and say, hey, you know, IT department, I want this kind of report. Then IT wrote a SQL script of some sort.
Right.
You know, it took a couple weeks. They come back to the manager and they say, hey, manager, I got this done 2 weeks. And then the manager runs a report and he's got, you know, he or she's got two-week-old data or a month-old data. It's useless by that time, right? Why can't a manager just go to an interface and just talk to it to say, I want to report for the last 2 weeks of all the devices and the documents and how much, you know, how many invoices do we process through and what's the accounts payable, and then run a report. If that's not right, just ask it a different way, right? Prompt it in a different way. If this data is there, then they can run their own reports. They don't have to go to IT. They're having real live data. It's actionable stuff. So that was a very long-winded way of saying, like, this is the vision, right? Just ask natural questions to machines with data.
How
Let me
about
blow your mind even more. So yeah, I agree, the data, right? And then if you're able to plug into the global set or the universal set of data in the data that you swerved into it, you need to connect all the devices to collect there's got to be some sort of glue that does that. That is the holy grail. That's been going on for, you know, 4 IT departments have spreadsheets that these are my printers, these are my copiers, these are my PCs, these are my mice. All that stuff is in a spreadsheet or whatever. And then back to your, you know, take that information, generate a report conversation. That's been going on. You know, remember when the reports were on Greenbar, you had to submit what you wanted to your IT department that went to the VAX or the, you know, the mainframe or the mini, and then generated a report. And then out came more data. It wasn't even a report. It was a data dump. So let's assume that you take that and yeah, now we are able to connect all the data, grab all that data and ask for a report. My next step would be, what is the human doing with that report? It's making decisions.
Yeah.
It's going into that particular person's processes to make a decision. And that's where the real AI comes in. Because I've got access to that data, right? Hardline, whatever, it's real-time data. My methods and my processes as a decision maker can be duplicated by the AI and improved by the AI over time continuously and be ready at the drop of a hat that it preempts any type of decision process.
Yeah.
And then when you start, you know, comparing it to the universe, which it could do, it really does start to predict and say, this is what we need.
But isn't the big word right now where we are in AI is trust?
Yeah. But
Trust in the information that you're getting back.
right, Art, which is a good point. right? So here's my point on that. Once well, trust from the data coming into the AI, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Unless, or in addition to that, the AI is able to compare to the universe, compare to
Yep.
other standards. And I'm not even going to use KPIs because that's two-dimensional. When the AI is equipped to be able to look at things three-dimensionally, it won't need the data. That's the crazy thing. So it gets even crazier. And these are not, I mean, these are up in pie in the sky stuff. I don't know if you've been watching the last 12 months. These things move fast, very fast. So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I understand, instead of, hey, can we use AI to generate our reports? Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. But, what are you doing with the report after you generate it? What's happening then?
Right.
And then that's where, well, okay, maybe I don't need a service manager.
Yeah, I hate to be always agreeing with you guys, but you do have good ideas. I don't want to be confrontational, but I agree with you, Art, on the data in. You got trusted in, and I mean, there's big news about Taylor Swift today, right? This generative AI nasty pictures are out there and stuff, and it's like
Oh,
terrible.
I didn't know
Terrible,
about
right?
that. Okay.
But it's news and it's bringing attention to deepfake. That's the point, right?
Right.
And I see it all over the news now. Everybody's talking about it, right? Deepfake videos, images. They were talking specifically about images, altering invoices, altering healthcare records, altering government records. Can you imagine if AI was sick in on a corporate database and just like you can't trust your data? So I think that's very important. We've got to
Yeah.
you got to have deep fake resistant kind of solutions at the
Yep.
capture point, right? Just like, and I hate to keep using OCR, but just like OCR, OCR is not a perfect technology. It's far from it, right? If you have bad image quality, you're going to get bad results. So even in OCR, there's a lot of checking, validation, database lookups. So same thing with deepfake. It will do lookups and detect deep fakes, right? So that you're going to have that line of defense, I think, really quick, because Greg, you're right. This is so fast, right? The amount of fake content out there is tremendous. So I think that's one thing. We've got to really focus on deep fake resistant solutions. That's number one. Then get your data. And then I agree, Greg, if you can consolidate your data into workflows and get good data sets, then you got clean data, you got quantity of data, you can compare it to the world of other data in addition to your own. You can compare it, and then actionable. Exactly right, right? I don't want another static report. I want to like have some predictions. If I tell me what to do, right? Pay these 15 invoices quicker. You can get a prepaid discount. You can save $30,000 on this,
Yep.
right? You get a higher ranking on your customer satisfaction surveys or something, right? Telling me why I want to take this action. It's not perfect, but it's a predictive, right? You could do that for accounting and healthcare and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I go back to the patterns, right? Because that's all LLMs do is look at patterns and predict the next thing. Like once upon a, everyone
So,
knows the word is time.
so could it predict security flaws
Certainly.
within
Art, you've swerved right into it.
employees?
Well, yeah, didn't Neil just talk, or Kevin, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Kevin, didn't you just talk about able to predict the propensity or the mood of
That
a-
was correct. So it just leads you down another path
Ugh.
that Greg seems a little bit wonky lately. And go over to the machine, or could you tell me what documents he scanned recently
Yeah.
and where they've been scanned to?
See, and Art, you're going down the right path. DLP, data loss protection or data leak protection. I don't know what the right acronym is, but that's kind of brute force, right? At the firewall, stuff coming in and going out, it interrogates it. So that's what tried and true technology, but it's been very expensive, right? And it didn't use AI in the past, but now can I detect patterns? Art's in the marketing department. All of a sudden, he's scanning a bunch of documents, social security numbers and credit card numbers, right? That's kind of what DLP does right now, is interrogates this. It doesn't fit your business profile. It doesn't fit that. But if you could do things like contextually understand the contents. There was a good example. I used to work at Abby, and we were an OCR company, but we're also a text analytics company too. And one of the use cases was an IP patent case. And it wasn't us, it was another company, and it was just a use case for that company. But what had happened was these I think three people had worked at this one company, and they started emailing back and forth about, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we started a company and then do this? And it turns out, they were talking in code, but somehow we put our technology on this and we were able to connect the dots. Meet me at Five Guys Pizza or Five Guys Hamburgers, and we'll talk about the thing. And the thing ended up being, them stealing the patent ideas from their existing company to this. And
Well,
they proved that in court because of contextual understanding, because
Mhm.
they weren't saying, hey, they didn't write it out, hey, I'm gonna go steal our company's IP. But through natural language, they connected the dots. So those are the kind of cool things you can do. You know, uh, there's a big medical records company, one of the biggest corpuses in the whole wide world of medical records, and they know there's value in those medical records and doctors' notes and stuff, but they can't really mine it efficiently because they needed a good semantic understanding, semantic indexing
yeah.
kind of technology. So now that the technology is available, you can imagine the kind of things that we could solve cancer, find a cure for cancer, or Alzheimer's, or really, or government applications, right? National defense or whatever, right? So now that we can collect the data, we can index the data, and AI is a real thing. People can create their own LLMs. But
Mhm.
to your point, Art, I like to circle back to security, right?
yeah,
And there, with all this benefit I'm talking about, there is, I take it, I'm very concerned about it because it's the Wild West. Everybody's super excited, and they don't take, a lot of people don't take security seriously. And we're going to be in big trouble if we can't trust the content. Like again, Taylor Swift, she's threatening to sue these people and whatever. And it's
Absolutely.
pretty nasty. Yeah,
Well, that's interesting. You guys remember the National Enquirer, right?
sure
oh
do.
yeah.
Yep.
It was all
Hey,
fake. Everyone knew it.
70s. I remember the 70s.
Yeah, but that was all fake.
Yeah.
And or was it? Who knows?
Yeah.
So, let's see, we're going to swing really out there. So the way I look at AI and LLMs and the way that we're, discussing this and security and trust, right? It ultimately comes down to what's between your ears as the consumer of whatever content you're consuming. And unfortunately, we've, as a world or whatever, have really gotten away from Socrates and critical thinking, right? So you look at this picture, you hear about a picture about Taylor, and it's bad. So we knew right off the bat that doesn't fit what we know about Taylor, right? It doesn't. Okay, that's not right. I mean,
Yep.
so that's very elementary, very shallow, but that's a critical thought. Okay, that's not right. So whenever, now when we hear, and I'm telling you, it's not happening. Whenever we hear something, whether it's on the news or a commercial or something, it really forces us as individuals to take a step back. And, well, is that true? Based on everything else I know in the real world, does that make sense? Now that asks an awful lot of the individual right now. And unfortunately I'm running into more and more people where I'm thinking through this lens and go, that person doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
Okay, those people don't. That group, wow. And it's like, okay, now that's what scares me. It not scares, but that's like, the systems and the artificial intelligence and the machines and the data. Yeah. But in the end of the day, it's what I read and what I take out of it. And if I believe it and my actions are, based on something that I believe to be true, which is what everyone else does too. But I think it forces us to be more critically thought driven. And I see that as a big deficit right now.
Yeah, Greg, but we're from the 70s and we're 80s and we're taught to critically think. I'm sorry, but kids
Yeah.
read headlines, right? They're buried in their phones and they don't read the contextual or understand the sources, right? The source matters, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and I'm going to go back to music because there's a little sliver of hope in my
Yeah.
belief. So I've been watching on TikTok, kids, I mean literally kids listening to, believe it or not, Led Zeppelin for the first time.
I
All
saw
right,
some of those.
yeah, and I've seen other things where but that's the first one, and they can't believe that you could tell that it's honestly something new and cool, and they bite down into. All right, so and you know all that Led Zeppelin, Van Halen, Eddie doing Eruption. It's like kids nowadays just don't understand how those noises are coming out of that guitar or whatever it is, but they like it. That's
Really?
another thing. It's like,
That's
oh, that is
interesting.
really cool. I mean, look what
Yeah.
he's doing. He put what is that? A cigarette? Yeah, it's a cigarette on the. They smoked back then.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we did. So, but so it isn't like that stuff sucks. I don't ever want to see it again. It's like, wow, that is really cool. How does he do that? So I think there's still hope that,
Yeah.
if,
Oh yeah.
if something like that can resonate and make other, people think, right. Now I will say this, I think it's a minority, unfortunately. I mean, just the way things are going, but who knows?
You
So
know what?
there's my hope.
Too many people want shortcuts.
Yeah.
And I
Instant
think,
gratification. Yeah.
yeah, shortcuts, whether it's in a workflow or shortcuts, whether it's
Wow, that's true.
and just doing their daily work. Too many people just want a shortcut, and
Boy.
they whether that shortcut is true or not true, I don't think many would take the time, which then presents problems.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the insidiousness about it is that people are realizing that, yeah, the shortcuts, but that in the past, there was no reason to do what we did. So doing it better, doing it quicker isn't really a shortcut. It's a way of doing it better, quicker, faster. But, but that's why it's insidious, because there are people that just want that shortcut. They don't care. So it's tough to discern between someone who's lazy and someone who's productive in a different way.
Right, but some of those shortcuts could
hard to
have
do.
disastrous ramifications.
Absolutely. And they should. That's another thing. It's like, yeah, okay, if someone gets burned, hopefully you learn, we can all learn from that mistake. That's, but
Interesting.
it's insidious. I mean, yeah.
So the shortcuts I had in the 70s, we'll go back to the 70s where we started, was how to get from point A to point B a little bit faster by car.
Right.
And
Right.
what did you have to bring out, right?
Yeah.
You had to bring out a map, right? If you didn't know how to read the map, you were screwed.
And even if you did, sometimes you were still screwed. It was like, it's upside down, idiot.
Yeah, I think that's a good place, is that yes, AI and all this stuff we're talking about and digital transformation, this can make people's lives much better, and you could focus on the more important things, like going to your kid's soccer game or going to dating your significant other, or focus on those things instead of the monotonous kind of task of typing in metadata or taking 5 days to scan a stack of documents, right? Have all this kind of automation and make your lives better, make your work life better, make your personal life better. And that's what we should do. But you can't, I mean, I think we need a lot of education, because you can't just blindly trust everything, right? Like you both are saying, right? People need to critically think about sources, the content. Does this make sense, right? Does Taylor Swift in these pictures, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit her profile. But you have to know you have to have some knowledge of her and her personality, and that doesn't make sense. But if you see, especially with the elections coming, that's what they were talking about.
Well,
So,
throw Hunter Biden in the mix.
there
right?
you go. Right?
So yeah, okay, I believe that he was in a bathtub with a crack pipe and a hooker, because so there's the difference. Even if you make it up, yeah, well, whatever. Same thing. If Taylor were a crack whore, and someone made a picture of her at the corner street down in wherever the heck it was, we go, yeah, even if it's fake, yeah, it still makes sense. So wow, I haven't thought about that.
But even Hunter Biden, right? They could credibly use this as a kind of a doubt, right? I know they've kind of confirmed it now, but I'm saying with other kind of content, we need to prove that it's authentic instead of proving that it's not fake, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, they could make a video of Hunter saving a busload of nuns off the side of a bridge or something like that. So he's a good guy.
Right.
Yeah, Now I'd say prove it, right? I'd
Yeah, I
say-
was like, all right, that looks cool, but really, it wasn't hot. Wow,
Right. So
good
Greg,
stuff.
your first question really involved into many additional
Yes,
questions.
it always does. Yeah,
and statements. It was a great time
yeah, good stuff.
with our discussions today. So
Thanks,
anybody
Art.
else
That
have
was good.
any other questions? Because we're coming up on the 1 hour mark.
I want to do another one with you guys. I want to talk specifically on, because we talked about this last time. We don't have time to do it now. We didn't have time to do it, but managed scanned services. We kind of agreed on our last meeting that this was good, but for some reason, it's either not been promoted in the industry, or there's not the right bundle, or the MSPs don't understand it, or the manufacturer.
right.
There's something there, I'm feeling, right? So what is the perfect kind of offering to where people can offer, just like they offer managed print services and managed services for other kinds of cloud applications, how can they offer managed scan services as well? And I'd love to get into that and educate people on maybe what they can do, what they can insist from providers, how to change their business model for this. But
Yeah.
Maybe
really-
I'll invite a couple of dealer principals that I know, and
that'd be great.
and see if we can get them on that call. Of course, it's always tough for dealer principals. They don't like sharing much. But I might be able to find a couple people to foot the bill.
Okay,
And
great.
we can schedule that sometime in February.
Beautiful.
All right.
Cool. That's
Hey,
great.
so with that, I want to thank Kevin. Thank you very much for your
Yeah,
time
Kevin, cool.
today.
It's always a
Right?
great time. Friday afternoons, it's bourbon and cigar time.
Yeah, and I didn't see Greg with a bourbon, although I had one, and I didn't have to start today. But I'm gonna light one up right after we're done. I want to thank everybody for enjoying the show. Please like the show, please subscribe, and thanks for viewing Ask Us Anything. Thanks,
Perfect.
everyone.
See you.
Thanks, guys.
Good weekend,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Take it easy.